I'm like, you're mad at me, but you're the one that raised me to be
Yes.
an independent
Yep.
and assertive woman. So,
Can't have your cake and eat it too.
so there you go, mom.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Soul Snacks. Cammy and I are laughing because we both were just like, all right, let's do it. And then Wild Thing, we literally both were just like, "Ba-da-dum,
But
bum,"
boom, boom, boom.
however that goes. but but that's what I assume that's what came to mind based on the sounds that you were making, Cammy.
Yes,
Yes.
that's exactly what
Okay.
came to mind.
Awesome. Okay, same here. So, welcome. Hello. A little bit of a Wild Thing introduction for you. We are back today, and we are talking about something special. We're talking about, well, so much of who we are as women did not start with us, right? It began generations ago, and so, in the way specifically our mothers taught us to love and to protect and to maybe stay silent or to survive. There's a lot to it. So in this episode, we are diving into mother wounds and these invisible threads that shape how we see ourselves, how we love, how we heal, just kind of how we get through life in a lot of ways. So we've got some stories to share as we typically do. And we'll talk about the things that we've inherited, the patterns that we've seen, generation to generation that all gets passed down and how to address the things so that we can break the cycle, right? So with a sense of compassion, with a sense of awareness, because at some point somebody has to rewrite the narrative. So we're going to jump into things. We're going to take that role on of being the ones to break the narrative a little bit. But Cammy, how are you? It's nice to
I
see
am.
you.
Thank you. It's nice to see you too for our little Friday morning deep dive session that we do.
Right?
I'm super pumped for this episode. In fact, I was out on my walk this morning thinking of all kinds of things to talk about because I think, as I kind of roll through life and age, I start to reflect a lot on, patterns that I have seen in myself, my growth, my personal growth, and the way that my relationship with with my own mom has evolved over the years.
Mhm.
And there's so many beautiful things in that I have noticed, and more so as I age and as I get older and start to really kind of see things for what they are. So I'm super excited about this episode, and I think, yeah, I can't wait to hear about your mom and ways that she's kind of shaped your personality too. So I think we
Yeah.
should just jump on in.
Oh, let's do
Um,
it.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, let me ask you, like, if you had to sum up your mom in 3 words, what would they be? Just as like a kickoff to this.
Oh gosh. Fiercely independent,
That's 2 words.
loyal.
I'm just kidding.
It is 2 words. All right, independent, loyal, um, and I would say protective.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say those are probably her the top 3 things that come to mind when I think about my mom, especially, um, the fiercely independent part. Like she is definitely, a woman to be reckoned with in terms of her independence, and, we'll get more into that, but yeah,
Mhm.
those are the 3 words that come to mind. How about you?
Okay.
What about your mom?
Well, it's funny that those are the 3 words that you pick because I would also say the first one that comes to mind is selfless.
Mm.
But independent is like right there, neck and neck, fiercely independent. Yes. But so definitely independent. And then spiritual. I think,
Mm.
and we'll get into all of them, but in in all of those ways, and I don't know, I mean, like, my mom has taught me so many different lessons, right? And whether she intentionally meant to or not, but I think those are really positive attributes that I carry as well. So they're things that, like, they come to mind first for her, and I also wonder if it's because those things are really important to me, and she's been a staple in helping those become, solid characteristics for me or values that I try to align with or whatnot. So, um,
So
yeah,
out of curiosity, what sign is she? Do
my
you know?
mom is a Virgo
Oh,
sun.
she's Virgo.
Yes. It's so okay, so as a student of astrology/astrologer, sometimes I still have a hard time calling myself that, but any case, we do not have the exact birth time that she was born, and so that really there's so much that helps kind of solidify if you're looking at a birth chart. So,
Mhm.
I have a general sense of, like, most of her placements, because, for anyone who we all have our sun signs, but there are also all the other planets and the moon and some very specific asteroids and all sorts of other pieces that come into play when you're looking at someone's astrological chart. So I don't have the full picture, but her sun sign is a Virgo.
Okay, okay. My mom's a Leo, and
Okay.
she embodies a Leo to the core.
Does she?
She is very strong and courageous and protective and,
Mhm.
she's just I mean, when you think of a Leo and you think of a fire sign,
Mhm.
you would see
Mhm.
my mother's name next to that, so
Yeah. There's, I mean, this obviously is going to be an astrology podcast, although at some point, hopefully, we'll have some of those. But there is something to be said about just because the reason that the sun signs are so important for people is because the sun is like our core energy. It's our life force. If you think about what the sun does for everything on earth, like it is crucial to our survival. And so when you think about the like our sun signs carry so much weight in terms of like who we really are and like the fire inside of us and stuff like that. So there's a lot of I mean, there's reasons why when you say your mom, she, exemplifies and embodies what a Leo stands for. My mother is like very much a Libra, Virgo. Um, I'm very much a Gemini. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so there's a lot to that. So I love actually knowing that your mom is a Leo. That's great. I'll keep that in
yeah,
mind
and
as we go through the conversation too.
well, and it's funny because, I'm a Cancer, so in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, we're in opposition of each other, right? Because I'm a
Mhm.
water sign and she's a fire sign.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we also there are so many parts of her personality that I also carry,
Mhm.
kinda like you said with your mom, or traits that are important to you,
Yeah.
that I've learned from my mom over the years,
Yeah.
and I think it's really interesting to kind of blend those 2 things together because 'cause I've always been fascinated with astrology and how it
Yeah.
works and all of that, so
Well, we'll have to get into more depth on astrology. I definitely, to be honest, I did not expect us to even talk about astrology on this one today, but I love it and I'm here for it. So let's do an episode about it.
All right. All right, we
um,
will do that. We'll
but
make sure we
so
get that on the calendar.
yes, we'll bookmark it. Okay,
Mhm.
but so you had started to say like that your relationship with your mom has really changed and it's evolved over the years and stuff like that, and that there's things that like she's definitely taught you. So like let's jump into it. How do you think your relationship has evolved over the years?
Well, I just think that, I see myself evolving with my relationship with her as more, I guess, understanding, more things about her and the way that she is, like,
Mm,
as I've grown into my
mhm,
adulthood, right?
mhm,
So, my mom and I have always been really close. Growing up, she was my ride or die, right? She was always there for me. We used to hang out together all the time. So I come from a family. I have 2 older brothers and I was the
mhm,
only daughter. So I think that I had that natural built-in relationship as, I was the little girl, right? And I was
mhm,
also the youngest. So,
mm,
um so I think, she naturally loved hanging out with her daughter.
mhm,
I always say I'm the favorite. My brothers don't well, they probably would agree.
mhm.
My mom says she doesn't have a favorite, but I'm her favorite, let's be
Yeah,
honest.
there, very fair.
Um, but yeah, so it's been interesting. My mom is, she's, she's taught me so many things over the years and, from everything from how to be you know, I think independence, like she has drilled into my head since I was a young child that I needed to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet. I should
Mhm,
never rely on a man or a partner to, I should always have like that relationship be secondary to just being able to stand on my own 2 feet. Right. So
mhm,
she's always said, go to school, get the education, get the job, make sure you're stable before you do anything else. And that way, if anything happens in life and anything comes crumbling down, you still, you have yourself as your
mhm,
solid foundation, which I think is very wise advice and has been for me for a long time. But I also think it's because of a lot of the things that have happened to her, in her
Mhm.
lifetime over the years, and some of the things that have shaped her, some of the events in her life that have made her realize that to her, at her core, that is the most important thing is
Mhm.
being able to depend on yourself.
Mhm.
So I don't know that that really answered the question of our relationship, but
Well,
it, that's what I think of when I think of my mom is like she has been the number one driver of
Mhm.
me being an independent woman.
Mhm. I mean, I think yeah, it's certainly, so I have a few different thoughts. I think first and foremost, like what you had said, we start as we get older, we start to see our mothers, parents, other adults in our lives, whatever, not just as the role of mother or father or aunts, uncles, whatever it is, right? Grandparents. We start to see them as people. And
Mhm.
the more that we start to kind of understand our own personality and how life evolves and how experiences shape us and, how we show up in our own relationships or work or whatever, I feel like it's easier to start being to recognize, like, they are people. They
Right.
have their own
Right.
personalities, they have their own stuff that they, have experienced in life. There's a lot of stuff that they do that they might not be aware of, so I think the evolution of those relationships, like, at some point, we are still the children, yet we become adults, right? And they are still the parents, yet they become other adults. And so there's always that dynamic of a natural evolution of how the relationship's going to look because we start to see them more as people.
Mhm.
So I think that, like, is a very blanket kind of thing. But I know we've both mentioned how, like, here are the things that we think of with our mother and our mothers, and, like, here are the things that they drilled into our heads in a way, right? Like, I had said it too, the independence, the selflessness, the, like, spiritual side. But sometimes I shouldn't say but sometimes. And, like, when we talk about the mother wound, and I want a quick caveat here because for people who don't know, like, what the mother wound, in quotes, is, just to clarify some things, like, the mother wound is really a quick Google search, right? And it's the emotional pain and trauma resulting from unmet emotional needs or lack of support in a child's relationship with their mother, which can stem from a lot of different things. So I wanna share that just for, like, some context around, like, what the mother wound, actually, is. But so I think sometimes when I think of how the relationship has evolved, not only am I looking at my mom differently and whatnot, but, like, I start to think about the things that maybe aren't as, like, that maybe she's not as aware of, and the things that get passed down, like, that are a
Mhm.
little bit more unspoken, right?
Mhm.
And I think some of those are even more significant than the things that have been, like, the lessons that she's, like, really tried to make sure that we're all aware of. And yeah, I mean, I don't, and also I feel like we probably don't need this disclaimer, but, like, my mother's wonderful. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that I fault her or any of the other generations for. We just know more now. Every generation is going to know more, right? So I think it's easier to look at other generations and our mothers, grandmothers, whatever it is, and be like, oh gosh, this was different. This was different. This wasn't here. Because we know more about what childhood development looks like and what needs, need to be met, and safety and security and all that stuff. So I feel like there's that caveat, right?
Well, and I think, you said it's interesting that you start, as you kind of get older and grow, you recognize things in your mom that maybe they don't recognize, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And as a mother myself, I find myself thinking about those things too in some of the
Hmm.
ways that I mother my son, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I wonder, like, can you give an example of something that you notice with your mom that maybe she's not fully aware of that either affects you or has been something that you have recognized over the years that either you've internalized or that maybe has made you who you are today?
Hmm. Um, yes. In the back of my mind, I'm like, "Hi, mom." Like, "I love you." You know, because I don't again, like, my mom and I are close, we talk about a lot of stuff. I was on the phone with her earlier before we got but there's still stuff that, like, there's a dynamic of a relationship that you always wanna be mindful of. But I think the thing that is probably most apparent, um And this is not just my mom. Like, this is the generations of women that she has come from. And I feel really fortunate to have access to like ancestry records and
Mhm.
stories and
Mhm.
like dialogue and lifelines and all sorts of stuff of the women on my maternal side, like my mom and then her mom and then her mom and her mom and her mom and
Mhm.
her mom, like generations back. And so
Mhm.
I don't know the full story, but there's bits and pieces of their stories that all kind of have this underlying theme to them, right? And it's they like they put their families first. They were focused on like survival in a way. And this is
Mhm.
generalization. Like I don't need to go into all of the stories, but
Mhm.
they looked out for their families and everybody else, and I think exhausted themselves in a way and didn't know how to emotionally care for themselves, how to emotionally nurture for themselves. And then, like, they wanted to make sure, like, you know, shelter was there, food was there, stability was there, whatever. But, like, the emotional side of things, I wonder about because I'm one of 5 kids. My mom was one of 7 kids. I mean, these are these massive, um, Catholic families, honestly. Like, there's just generation after generation and people and people and people. So the awareness that they would have had to say like, "Hey, I'm gonna have 10 kids and also be there emotionally for each one and nurture each child as they're growing up. And then how do I nurture myself when I'm trying to raise, 6 kids within the course of 7 years when they're just like one after the other?" So I think that's really long-winded. This like we can give and give and give to so many other people, right? We care for so many other people and we show up for other people and we will show up for ourselves in this very like independent, like get shit done sort of way. But this like emotional caring
Oh,
is
uh,
not
yeah.
as evident, I think.
Well, I don't think that was anything that was really taught or
No,
focused on in their generation, right? My mom and I,
100%.
we literally just had this conversation about, we were kind of talking about the baby boomers versus
Hmm.
the Gen X versus the millennials. And we were kind of like going through the generations, right? And
Yeah.
how things have evolved. And that's
Yeah.
all part of this discussion is generational trauma and,
Hmm.
cycles that eventually have to get broken. And
Hmm.
I completely agree with you. So my mom's a baby boomer
Yeah.
and exactly the same way. I mean, it is a pull up your bootstraps, get shit done, get your education or be the stay-at-home mom and be the best stay-at-home mom and put all of your focus into your kids, your family, while at the same time completely depleting your own personal reserves for yourself.
Right.
And, even to this day, I said to my mom, whenever I, try to compliment her or give her, words of affirmation, she always kind of like poo-poos it, right? She can't
Hmm.
accept the compliment. She can't just
Hmm.
take it for what it is, and
Hmm.
she'll make a little snide comment about herself or whatever,
Hmm.
because she was never taught, and didn't have examples of somebody being able to take the compliment and
Hmm.
internalize it and just love herself for it, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, that was all that was it. That was all I was gonna say.
Well, and when you think back about the generations, right? Like they have like there were wars. My grandparents were coming out of like the Great Depression, right?
Mhm,
There was a lot of this stuff where the focus was just do we have enough for the basics? Like our
mhm.
basic needs met, right? And even the focus of like family, life was slower, right? And not slower in a bad way, slower in a more intentional way. There was more community. Like our world has gotten we know so much more, but it's also gotten so much faster, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think yeah, to your point, like the focus just wasn't there. And they also didn't have the leisure necessarily of like making sure that they were taking care of themselves and self-care and like no one was like working out and like doing the things that we know are like really important for our well-being.
Mhm,
Um and I think that like there was one story I was reading about like my great 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 grandmother. I think great, who literally left Ireland during the famine, right? So they're leaving all of their family behind. They don't know what they're coming to. They're like coming over as ballast in a lumber ship because that was like the way to go. So you don't even know if you're going to survive the journey. And I'm reading this story about how she basically is like showing up with a bunch of these like other rowdy Irish folk in upstate New York with an axe, being like, I will axe your guys' brains if you don't like get the heck out of here. Like literally those words that are written down in this story. And I'm like, okay, so she was a boss. So there's like this strong, this like, I just have to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to show up to do the thing. I'm not worried about like the emotions of it all.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, and I think that that's a big part of it too.
Mhm.
And I think about like, the living with like my mom's family, coming
Mhm.
out of the Great Depression and
Mhm.
having to hold on to everything, right? My mom
Yeah.
is she saves everything.
Yeah.
She has a lot of stuff in her house, whereas I don't like to have stuff in my house. I'm
Mhm.
constantly decluttering and getting rid of stuff, and when I start to get a lot of stuff, I start to get like anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, but she finds like contentment and security in the
Mhm.
stuff, right? Because that's what she grew up with and that's what she knows.
Mhm.
And I find it so interesting too that the that it was more survival in that generation and how we've come
Mhm.
so far like full circle. And even let's even take like the news and the way that our parents grew up with the news, right?
Yeah.
Journalistic integrity was everything back in the day. Like if you saw a news story, you better believe it was true.
Mhm.
I mean everything. And so that, even now a lot of times she'll read things and I think a lot of times we'll think they're true, but
Oh.
we don't have that kind of like we don't have that journalistic integrity anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
certainly there's some news outlets that do, but for the most part, you don't know if what you're reading these days is true. Is it AI? Is it true? Is it not true? Like, um, whereas she's more aligned with just reading stuff and believing it. Like I'm more aligned with like questioning everything because of just how much has like changed from generation to generation. And
Mhm.
now even like the millennials and the Gen Z, I think it's even going more full circle
Mhm.
towards just a completely different world than what the baby boomers
Mhm.
knew. Does that make sense? I went on a
No, it
little bit of
does.
a tangent, but
Well, I think it brings up the point that like, Ugh, it's so like there are so many funny things right now about boomers, right? Like my Instagram feed is full of like, oh, your mom's a boomer, or your parents a boomer, or boomers are this, like it's easy to look at different generations and think about like how different the generations are and the challenges
Mhm.
that come like you see right now all the time where it's like, oh, well, yeah, mom and dad, when you were my age, you just had to get a mortgage and the cost of living, this and the other thing. Now it's like, there's all this stuff out there where we kind of compare the generations. But I think what we miss sometimes is the perspective of like what the generations were actually navigating through. And that
Sure.
it's again, I do not fault my mother or my grandmother or my great grandmother or anybody who did the best they could with the
Mhm.
information they had at
Sure.
the time they were present. Like my parents got divorced when I was 12 and she was the we primary custody. She was raising 5 kids, all of us
Mhm.
that are like basically 2 years apart. I mean, we were all
Mhm.
pretty much under the age of 14 when they got divorced. Like, there's not a lot of time to do anything for yourself at that point, aside from working 2 or 3 jobs, which she did the whole time, and then
Yeah.
making sure that, like, we had shelter. I mean, we were on food stamps for a little while, like, the basics, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think we miss sometimes, like, it's easy to pinpoint with other generations, like, what they did wrong, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to also think about, like, how it was different and how they did their best and what we can, learn from that, I
How
guess.
to
I don't
focus
know.
on that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. And
It's an
my
extra
my
grace, just and I don't mean
yeah.
to interrupt you, but just to be like, "Oh gosh, like, yeah, am I triggered by this shit now, mom? 100%. Like, is it frustrating, all this stuff?" And also, like, I need to keep in mind just how different things are with generations. You know what I mean?
Oh, completely. And I had a very similar upbringing. My parents
Mhm.
got divorced when I was 11. My mom had, primary custody of 3 kids and she had to work
Mhm.
2, 3 jobs to keep food on the table and, keep the lights on in the house. And like she was riding the struggle bus, man.
Mhm.
She,
Mhm.
but she also like was so, I mean, I remember sitting with her when we had a big house at the time with a large yard that had to be mowed with a tractor, and the tractor went down and she had no money to fix it. So she
Mm.
ripped the entire engine out of the tractor, and I was with her and she put that whole dang thing back together
Mhm.
and figured it out. Like, and there
Mhm.
was no YouTube videos back then. Like,
Right?
she just figured it out.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
she's still like that. Like, she
Mhm.
will, I mean, this woman, she's still she's 80 years old. She's still trimming all of her trees. She's still mowing her
Mhm.
lawn. She knows exactly what to put into what machine. I mean, she's way, way more advanced with
Mhm.
do it yourself projects and fixing things around her house than I will ever be.
Mhm.
And that is all because she didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
just had to figure it out, and
Yeah.
she did, you know?
Okay. Yeah. My mother is the same way. Exact same way. And I end up being a lot of the same way. And I know we've started to talk about this, but like there's something about being independent, which is amazing. And then on the flip side, does it okay, how do I want to say this? Because I want it to come over. Like it is also hard for me. It is also hard for my mother. I think it's probably like would have been hard for my grandmother to ask for help and to receive support, which I think is another reason why it's so easy to get burnt out and give and like overflow to everybody else. And then, or the stuff that needs to get done, and we just figure it out without being like, gosh, I can ask for help. I need some support. Like, it's okay to throw up the white flag and be like, this is not working for me, you know? And so sometimes I feel like this hyper independence almost also comes at the cost of like being able to ask for support
And
and
being
let that in and feel
and
and trust it. You know what I mean?
Oh, and being able to receive support, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And being
Yeah.
okay with it, because the vulnerability piece
Yeah.
is a real thing, right? So,
Mhm.
that's another thing with my mom is, like, she does not she's not comfortable with vulnerability
Mhm.
because of the way she grew up, and I'm not
Mhm.
faulting her at all. I
Right.
wanna
Yeah.
be very clear on that, like,
Yeah.
I can see the full reason why she would feel that way and why, but
Mhm.
it's very hard for her to ask for help, and when we do offer help, a lot of times she just is like, "Nope, I can do it myself. I've got it handled." And then sometimes she'll even get frustrated when I try to help her. She feels like I'm overstepping,
Mhm.
because I'm trying to, like, point her in a direction that I really feel like will help her and support her, and she doesn't
Mhm.
want any part of it because
Mhm.
she is just in her mind like, "I've got this," you
Mhm.
know?
She's like, "Shit, I raised a little me and I don't like it." You know? It's
Exactly.
like
Exactly, and I've
all of
even
my
said that.
sisters and I are like that too. We're like, "Hey, mom, here's our 14 opinions about the thing that you're doing." And she's like, "Let me do my thing." Nobody has to.
Oh, I know, and I have said that before. I'm like, "You're mad at me, but you're the one that raised me to be
Yes.
an independent
Yep.
and assertive woman."
Can't
So,
have your kid can eat it too.
so there you go, mom.
Yeah, seriously.
And it's funny because I'm sure my son feels the same way with me, when I'm
Mhm.
trying
Mhm.
to do things, and I know I overstep with him too, and I don't mean to. It's just because I really want to help and I want to provide support, but
Mhm.
sometimes, they just don't want it. I got to wrap my head around that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's so interesting. Like, so I think of my own behaviors, right? And I would think this is probably, um, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like this probably resonates with you too. Like, I am learning how to like I'll go out and like try the thing and do the thing and whatever. And I've said because it's hard for me to ask support, it's hard for me to receive support, and because I'm learning what support even looks like and feels like. And I'm 42 years old, and I think sometimes like when we talk about like the mother wound and stuff, like if my mom didn't know how to nurture herself in a way that or my grandmother didn't know how to like really nurture herself because they're focused on the survival and doing the best they could and whatever it was, then like why would I expect that she was able to nurture me, especially in the way that like a child would need it, especially when there's like 5 of us kids running around. I think about
Mhm.
like the size of families back in the day and like
For sure.
And again, this goes back to like we know more now and how important the early childhood development is and the role that moms play when it comes to nurturing and providing this sense of like security and self-esteem and instilling our worth in us. Like that's a huge thing that moms play a part of, where dads have like overlap with some different stuff. And it's like, if it was hard for her to even nurture herself or know what that feels like, and this is generations, generation after generation after generation, it's the same
Sure.
kind of thing. Why would I think that that would like, why would I think that that's the, this is gonna sound blunt and I don't mean it to, but like, why would I think she'd do that with me? You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
know how to do that with me. And therefore, like, that's something that that's part of my mother wound, that it's like, gosh, how do I nurture myself? Like when you know what I mean? I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Bec-
Would you say the support, like asking for support, is your biggest mother wound that you have?
I think that,
Or
um,
asking and receiving support and being okay with it?
I think that's a good umbrella, right? Because I think there's like the physical support of things, but then there's like the emotional support. Like even feeling like it's okay to talk about our emotions of like,
Mm,
I feel
mhm.
this way. This is how it's coming across. This, like, if I'm in the heat of something and I'm pissed, being like, hey, this is, this is how this is making me feel, right? Like there wasn't conversation around emotions. And that is very much a generational thing, right? Like
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
even younger generations now are way more comfortable talking about their emotions than we are. You know what I mean? And we're more
100%.
comfortable talking about emotions than generations before us. But it's like support, not only like a physical way that you might think of like, hey, I need help with this or need help with this, but in like an emotional way of
Mhm.
like, I need to feel supportive and being able to like share how I'm feeling and share what's frustrated me and know that there's like some emotional support, clarity, understanding, um, on the other side of it too. And I don't know that that's necessarily something that's not just from my mom by any means, you know, but that's, I think as like women to women, you know, like the wombs of the wombs of the wombs that carry that we came from. I feel like
Mhm.
that's like a big part of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, mine's very similar. I would say, mine is definitely that, like, ability to be vulnerable, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't like to talk about my feelings. When I
Mhm.
get frustrated or upset, I have a really hard time expressing them. I usually
Mhm.
just kinda stuff it all down and deal with it myself.
Mhm.
Um, and, I'm trying to learn to be better at that and to have better conversations, like,
Mhm.
when things come up, but it's very, very difficult for me.
Mhm. Have you
Um,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and I don't know, if that eases with time and, kind of
Mhm.
as you get older, because I do feel like it's getting easier as I get
Mhm.
older, and maybe it's because I guess I don't place as much value in what other people think
Mhm.
anymore like I used to. Like, I used to be very concerned. I was a people pleaser to the core, and I
Yeah.
never wanted anyone to think any less of me. And I think I'm getting more and more away from that as I
Mhm.
get older. So it is getting somewhat easier for me, but it's still it's very hard for me to be vulnerable.
Mhm. Do you feel like when it comes to the like what I'm just gonna use quotes like mother wound, right? And like these some of these challenges. Do you feel like there was a time where you were like, hey, like I've got to do something different. Like if these are the things that I'm recognizing, like I have to now take responsibility to do something different. Like I intentionally want the cycle to be different and that I don't want this to be something with my children or his children, so on and so forth.
I think that has been more apparent to me recently. I
Mhm.
would say within the last maybe 2 to 3 years,
Mhm.
where I started to recognize more of that, and started to really get a full picture of why I am the way I am,
Mhm.
and kind of what that's looked like from generation to generation. But I also think sometimes there's things that happen in your life that bring light to more of those types of things that make you start thinking deeper and
Mhm.
start like really digging down and into the deep stuff to figure out, okay, why am I reacting that way? Why am I doing this? Why am I not able to express myself? And I think it's all part of the evolution of a human, right?
Mhm.
And as we grow, but um absolutely think it's not something that was even really on my radar,
Mhm.
until more recently,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
I There was a time where I started, and I feel like it was before our wedding, because part of the reason we got married in Ireland is because I had this, like, fascination with, like, my maternal lineage. Again, because there's something I think as a woman, it's like the womb of the womb of the womb. Like, like, science, I mean, it's a known fact, whether people know it or not, whether people have heard it or not, that, like, I was in the womb of my grandma. Because between, like a female is born with all of the eggs she's ever gonna have, and eggs develop in the fetus between, like, weeks, I think, like, 20 and 22. So, like, when my mom was in my grandmother's womb at 22 weeks, I was in there too. We were all just, like, hanging out, you know what I mean? And so I think there's something which is wild to think about, but to your point, then you start thinking about, like, gosh, the things that our grandmothers were going through when our moms were fetuses, and
Mhm.
that we were, it's like just layers upon layers upon layers. And so when, like, it was starting to there was a time where I really started to dive into the family history, and then you start seeing, like, how many different people it takes to create a person. And this gets into, like, epigenetics, right? And, like, the science that we all have our DNA, right? But that based on our lifestyle, based on experiences, based on our diet, all sorts of things, like, there can be, we'll call them, like, adjustments in our genes based on all these other factors, that our DNA stays the same, but, like, our genes, um, like, kind of mutate in a way, right? Or start
Right.
showing up differently. So they say that epigenetics goes back like 14 years. So people are not 14 years, 14 generations. So people that were like 14 generations in our past could have had some sort of impact on us. Do you know how many people had to come together to
Oh.
create 14 generations? Guess. What
Oh.
do you think the number is?
Oh my gosh. I don't even, do you know the number?
I do, because I Googled it because I was interested.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. Come on, Cammy. This is a fun fact for the day. Everybody, you'll be shocked. What do you think it is? 14 generations.
14 generations. You're talking
Mhm.
about all of the people that, like, were all part of those lifetimes of all those people. It's
All those
gotta be,
people that got together in order for your life to be here.
it would have to be in the billions, I would think.
Well, no, it's not that high.
That seems, I mean, that's so many people. Think about all the people that you, like, encounter in your lifetime, and you're
Well,
talking that times 14?
no, the like, literally, like, your grandparents, and then your great-grandparents, and your great-great-great-grandparents, and your great-great-great-great-grandparents, like, the people, like, that got together and, like, actually, like,
Oh,
your relatives, your ancestors.
okay. I thought you
They
meant,
hooked
like
up, they got pregnant, they had a baby, that baby had a baby, that baby had a baby, so on and so forth.
okay, sorry. I thought you were talking about, like,
The
all,
population
like
of the world? No.
no, no, I was thinking, like, all of the people that encounter,
Oh,
like,
no.
by chance, like,
Got it.
for your people to get together, like, you encounter so many people and you take one road, you find somebody, you procreate with somebody, but there's all these other people that could have
Oh,
been
yeah, no.
part of that equation.
This is just the procreation part.
Oh gosh. I don't know. I have no idea. You
You
tell
don't
me.
even wanna guess? Just a fun one?
I have no idea. I don't even know what I I don't know. Tell me.
Which 16,384 ancestors to cover 14 generations. So if you think about that for a second, and this, I think, is what helped me also give some grace to, like, my mom and my dad and my grandparents and my great-grand, because there are 16,384 people that had a part in me being here. That their DNA, their life experiences, their diet, their struggles, all of their stuff had some impact on me, which means that for my mom, there were 16, 14 generations back for her, 14. So if we're talking 14 generations from, like, our generation right now, we're talking like the 15, 1600s. So the shit that people were going through at that point, and women especially, right? And all of that, and then it gets passed on, and it gets passed on, and it gets passed on. And that, like, there are still parts of that that could be, like, in our DNA. There are definitely parts of it that were in our mother and father's DNA. So, like, that's the type of generational, like, when people use generational trauma, big T, little t, whatever that looks like. And I say big T, little t, is it like big trauma, very significant, severe, like, trauma, or like little T trauma that's still very impactful, but it might not be considered like big trauma, right? That is a huge amount of people and impact and lives and situations and all the stuff
Oh my
to have an
gosh.
impact on us or our parents or our grandparents, right? And nobody was talking about emotions or nurturing themselves in any of those generations, I would suspect.
Right,
You know
right.
what I
Well,
mean?
yeah. Yeah. I think things looked a lot different back then, right?
Yeah.
Than they do now. But I'm so curious why it's 14.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's
You
that's the
know,
science I did go into.
is that as far back as they can go? Because
I don't know.
I just feel like it's gotta be more than that. I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah, I don't
I mean,
know.
that
Maybe.
is a long way back, but maybe that's as far as they could trace it with
Yeah, maybe.
genealogy and things like that. But
It's
it
wild.
then it goes all the way back to, like, the Big Bang and evolution and, how did we
Totally.
get here? And I mean, you could get lost in this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I literally pull up the like, so there's a number of people in my family that were really big into like the ancestry, and I pull up the database and this fan chart that goes out, and it is wild to get an actual visual representation. And I can only look at 7 generations at a time, and it's like all those people had a part in like me
Oh,
being here, you know? And then you
yeah.
start like pulling up pictures, and they all look angry, and then there's some stories, and you're like, you look miserable. And like
I
you're
have
like
seen some of
you're
those
like,
photos.
got it. So, oh my gosh, this is a total tangent, but I have to say, this like made my day the other day. People, we are tangenting, bear with us. I was at the coffee shop the other day. Cami, it's one that we've gone to before. It's a bookstore and a coffee shop. And there was a book as I was walking out. I have to pull up my phone right now to get the picture. There was a book that I was walking out, and it was called Hot Victorians Meet Your Dream Man from the Past. And I'm going to put a picture of this book on social so you guys can all see, because I was like, it caught my eye.
What?
Because of that, I was like, I feel like every Victorian or older picture I see, everybody's angry, right? And so I saw this and I was like, okay, cover boy, like, who is this? And so then I like flipped through it, and they have these pictures. And I'm telling you what, these are good looking men. And they have these bios next to them about like one of them. You guys, oh my God. I literally started laughing in the coffee shop. It was like, yeah. So there's 2 I snapped a screenshot of. The fit, fiery farmer who's, you'll swipe. So this like his bio. If you like bearded agrarian daddies, his simple pleasures. I love the smell of manure in the morning. And like the other, and I think I laughed at that because my husband was actually a dairy farmer for like 17 years. And he's also made the statement of like, there's something about the smell of fresh manure. So
You're like,
equating
here's
that
my
to
guy.
Mark. I'm like, there's my guy. But but then the other one was an oarsman, like a rowing crew and like a couple other things. But his so this for his swipe if you like was riparian romps. And his greatest strength is that he always finds a way to stick his oar in. And so I'm like, I mean, clearly it takes a little bit of a twist with some of these things, but it was hysterical. And I tell you what, I was flipping through this book and I'm like, okay, so not everybody back in the day looked like they were miserable, because the photos I've seen of a lot of my ancestors, they're just,
Oh, yeah.
they're surviving, right? They're not trying to like get a selfie or take a glamour shot. They're like not even smiling. They're just here
Yep.
documenting their life, basically. Anyways,
Absolutely.
I tangent.
That is hilarious. Please share that book.
I will. I don't even know where I was
after
going.
the show.
What were we talking about? People, yeah, generations. I don't know.
Generations.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. So I guess, do you feel as though as you kind of go through life that you're starting to break some of those things that you talked about? Like, are you getting better at asking for support, feeling more comfortable when you get it? Or do you think that's just something that's going to take time?
I think I certainly think that in a number of ways. I mean, it's always something that I'm working on, right? I think we're always working on things. There's never something when it comes to our personal development or our relationships where it's like, check, got it, moving on, you know? I certainly think it's getting better. And honestly, I have to give a lot of credit to Mark because he has helped create that space for
Mm,
me to
mhm.
have those conversations and to feel supportive and to know what, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I also think that like I think a lot of it stems from communication. And really try to be more cognizant of my communication with people, more personally aware of how my communication comes off. And it's not perfect by any means, but like, because I want it to be different, right? And, but at the same time, like, sometimes it feels like, gosh, I'm doing all this stuff which might help in my life right now, but I don't have biological children, you know? So there's part of me that feels like it's also kind of funny that like out of my 5 siblings, I'm the one that's most interested in this, and I don't have my own children to pass some of that on. So it's like this
Yeah.
healing that feels like it's taking place, and then I can show up for my nieces and my nephews, or I can show up differently in conversations with my mom and see her from a different light because of this, or my grandparents or whatever it is. But it's like, well, now what? You know what I mean? Like with my stepdaughter, I would love to be able to like help in some of these conversations and teach different things, you know,
Mhm.
and support her in those ways. But I think it also feels different when it's like your own child and you know what I mean? Because she's
Yeah.
already 18. Like a
Yeah,
lot of this
right.
stuff too is childhood. Like she, you know, I wasn't around when she was a child. I mean a young child, right? So she was 12 when her dad and I got together. So it's like
Mm.
so it's yeah, it's like joke's on me. Like you're doing all of this and then, you know, you're
Well,
not
there's
passing it on. But what about you? I mean,
but
you
there's a reason for all of that,
no,
right?
I'm sure, yeah. To
Yeah,
have
I think
these conversations about hot Victorians. That's the reason.
yeah, exactly. Um, I yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing a better job of breaking the cycle a little bit,
Yeah.
of recognizing things that, you know, maybe were normal for me as a child, that I wouldn't consider really normal at all.
Mhm.
Um, but it's taken me into my 50s to figure those things out. And I just think that that's part of life, right? I
Mhm.
think that's just part of humans and the way that they evolve and they mature. And, you know, it's too bad that you're not as smart and wise in your 20s and 30s as you are in your 50s and older years, because
Mhm.
just think of all of the stupid choices you wouldn't have made back then.
Mhm.
But again, that's all part of making you you, right?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
bad choices, the breakdowns that have led to the breakthroughs, the things
Mhm.
that, you know, we've been taught and that we have learned through experience in our lives are what make us who we are. And
Mhm.
there's no other person in the world that is like us.
Mhm.
So I think we have to embrace that.
Mhm.
So
Um, and just a caveat, not both of us are in our 50s. Just kidding.
it's okay.
I'm
You know,
totally kidding. I'm
you'll
totally
get
kidding.
wiser as
I
you you'll
as I
get
have
wiser
something to
too.
look forward to. Yeah, yeah. Well, if you think that okay, so we touched on things, right? With the things that our mothers have instilled in us, the things that maybe they didn't or maybe they weren't aware of, and how it's impacted us and whatnot. If you had like a message to like send healing back to your mom, or even just through your lineage,
Mm,
right? Like
mhm.
to the women that came before you, like what would you say to them? What would you want them to know or to feel or anything?
I would probably try to tell them that vulnerability can actually be a strength. And to, you know, people like to help other people.
Mhm.
People naturally love to feel needed and wanted. And I think that when you are vulnerable and you ask for help and you receive help, it actually helps other people feel good
Mhm.
in its own way. So, while I do think it's really important to be independent and to, you know, to make your own choices and things like that, I do think that, if I could give any sage advice to the previous generations, it's just be, you know, just be mindful that it's okay, to let your guard down and to be vulnerable and to accept support and help from other people.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I would say. What sage advice do you have for your lineage?
I mean, I don't like I don't know. I guess if I was talking to my mom specifically, I think if I'm being honest, like I'm ha- I hmm, I'm hard on my mom in some ways, right? because, and again, it goes back to like the more that we know as
Mhm.
generations and stuff, and the expectations that we have. And when it's like, oh, like here's what you expect motherhood to look like or childhood to look like or whatever, whatever. And then if it's not, it like somehow like you feel slighted or that it falls short or something. And there's sometimes where I feel like I hold my mom to an expectation of like wanting to, like my mom is all about personal growth and evolution and spirituality and seeking truth and all that sorts of stuff. Like we can certainly like we're similar there. But she also is 71 and she might not want to like go through all these years of changing and adjusting your communication and all the things and all the things. And it's like, that's okay. Like, I think in some ways I need to, specifically with that dynamic, like really, and with the generations previously, I feel like it'd just be like, you know what? You guys did the best you could. Done.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that, and like the lessons that you taught intentionally and the lessons that you taught unintentionally have the same amount of weight. And like, I'll take it from here. You know what I mean? In a way, and I know that's like a simplification, but I think it's just this like recognition of all that the trials and the tribulations and the lessons and the, like I had one grandmother who lost 4 of her 8 children under the age of 10. And it's like to even comprehend that kind of stuff. It'd
Mm.
just be like kind of to your point. Like you can ask for help, you feel supportive. And I'd just be like, you did the best you could, honestly. Like, and that's enough. And it's now for the next generations, like we'll continue to evolve and we'll take the torch and run with it and we'll, do the work. Maybe that's more of the emotional stuff because we're having those conversations now. But so I think it's like, thanks for that, for all the generations before me. Got it. I'll run with it. For my mom specifically, I think it's just it's that too though. Like thanks, for all of the stuff, for all of the sacrifice, for all of the everything that's been done and to like let that be enough. That it doesn't all have to meet some standard of my generation because we know more. You know what I mean? Like
Well, I think it's looking at it through a lens of more curiosity rather than judgment,
sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think if we're aware of the things,
Mhm.
that awareness is also kind of the doorway.
Mhm.
Whereas, if we continue to blame and get
Yeah.
frustrated from previous generations and the things that have happened, then it keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if we look at it through a lens of compassion and appreciation for the sacrifices that the generations have made to get us to where we are today,
Mhm.
and you're right. And then you know what? Thank you for all of that because
Mhm.
I wouldn't be the person I am today without that. But now I'm ready to carry the torch forward in
Mhm.
in my own way. You know?
Mhm. Mhm. And that, like, I think the other thing, the stuff that was really important to us, and I'll say this with both of our moms, it sounds like they they were intentional about teaching, right? And
Hmm.
there's a lot of value in that.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
again, it's like, that's the stuff you kind of want to roll with. And the stuff that, not that it wasn't important, but just unaware of or whatnot, like, how do you teach the stuff that you don't even necessarily know? You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, anyways. I feel like it's just pop up.
Oh, well,
There's a
yeah, I
lot.
mean, it is, and I mean, we
Mhm,
talked about a lot today, and I think
mhm,
that, if we could give any advice to our listeners as they kind of continue to roll through life, and I'm
mhm,
sure that they come across things that they get frustrated with or that they notice that they're very thankful for and grateful for, just to try to approach it with that curiosity, right?
mhm,
And to see, things good and bad with
mhm.
a level of compassion for their mothers, their ancestors,
Yeah,
and as they kind of grow and evolve into humans,
yeah. Well, and I
So,
think that, like, some responsibility that we have, now that we know, to not put it on our parents, to not put it on our moms, to not put it on our grandparents or whatever that looks
mhm,
like, but, like, to take ownership of it, right? So, like,
mhm,
maybe this was a thing that my mom didn't even know that we weren't getting as kids because everything else was being provided for, whatever. But like now I know about it and now I can do something. And so,
mhm,
how am I talking to that little girl who needed some of that nurturing? How am I
mhm,
taking care of myself? And to your point, to not blame or not put, because that does keep us stuck. And like I literally have 3 different pictures of me as a little kid at my desk. Like we get to take some ownership now that we know and run with it instead of having the expectation of other generations to like fix it for us, you know?
Yeah, it's really that whole self-accountability
Yeah,
piece,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
And we get to choose what we do with the information that we've learned up to this point in our life.
Yeah.
And if we can choose, a more positive lens and just remember that you can't you can't heal if you don't feel, right? So you've
Oh,
got to be able to take
catchy.
It's what I do. But it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have you have to feel the things, right? You
Yeah.
have to have the disappointments and the sadness and the frustration because those are the things that you feel deeply that also are the things that help you to change and grow.
Right.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
so all
Well, all
right.
right.
Well, I
Go ahead.
loved this discussion. I think it was really insightful
Yeah.
discussion today talking about these things and I have mad respect and love for my mom. So mom,
Same.
when you listen to this, just know I see you. I see you, girl, and
And you
everything you've been through, and I love you for it. All of it.
and you can hold me accountable to the things I said, Mom, about being a little bit more gentle, a little bit kinder, maybe not being so opinionated, a little bit more grace. She's actually my mom's coming down like next we're recording this right before the holidays. She's coming down and so I'll be like, hi. And that starts now. Anyways, well, thanks everybody for listening. And as always, if there was something that resonated with you, give us a like or a share or a subscribe or just send us a DM, whatever feels fitting for you.
Just leave it at that.
Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.